All right, this is Alex Renner. I'm going to do a video today based on some class feedback on how to, one, use some construction geometry, and two, how to use convert entities. I showed that in class, so it seemed useful. So during class, I drew one of the shapes where we talked about world coordinate systems versus local coordinate systems. So I'm going to start with that, and then I'm going to create a sketch on my front plane. And I'm just going to outline the basic shape here. What I highlighted in class is kind of waiting for, it's not really showing up easily, but waiting for a little symbol. You can barely see it. There we go. Let me zoom in. So there's a little symbol, it's yellow, it's right behind this icon, but it shows vertical. And when I click it, you'll see right here that that is saying that that line is now vertical, so I can't move it and tip it side to side. Same thing here, I can make it horizontal. And then this shape, I'm just general shape. And then if I wait and have that the vertical line again, and then wait for this dashed line to show up to go back to the origin. Now, if I hit escape and kind of look at what we have, talked about this in the class, but not really demonstrated a lot, moving these lines to help you determine what needs to be defined. So obviously we would need to define this line, that line, that line. I can do that quick. So I need to give a smart dimension here. I'm just going to keep whatever value shows up. I could do an angle. So let me do that again. So smart dimension, click one, and then click another. And I could do that angle like that. So I'll just, for demonstration purposes, I'll leave that. And then I need to define how tall this is. And then at this point, I hit escape there to get a smart dimension. You might be like, what's going on here? So I must be missing a link down here, right? All right, now I can rotate in a sketch using my middle mouse button. I'm going to hold down the control key and then press the number 8. That will bring me back to normal 2. You can also go up to this in graphics window menu, because remember, this is the graphics window. As I said, if you rotate like out of your view, go back to normal whenever you're doing sketches, just makes the dimensionals a lot easier, makes adding relationships a whole lot easier, etc., etc. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to leave this here. Remember, this is finish, or it's the same as exit sketch, but I can also just go straight to features and then extrude. And then, as I talked about in class, keeping that closed contour, and then if I make sure I have a closed contour, I will see this yellow preview and then be able to do an extrusion. Something that might be useful, instead of just blind, there's lots of other types of extrusion. If I want to use the actual front, top, and right plane and really make this, very, copy certain features, I could choose mid plane. So, if I do something on this face, I could copy it over there. But also, if I go up here and choose isometric view and then mouse over, now I can actually use the front plane to do certain operations on. I'll talk about maybe how we can possibly use that. What I did in class is then we talked about local coordinate systems. So now I'm going to create a local coordinate system using this face by creating a sketch on it. So 0, 0 will be down in this corner. And then during class, I thought it was a useful idea to show you that there are different ways to view the part. So by default, shaded with sharp edges. That's what you're gonna most of the time want to be using. The other most likely thing is hidden lines visible. So it might confuse you, but remember you can middle mouse button press down on it to rotate and kind of get you an idea, okay, what do those lines mean? And so I'm gonna look at this line here and hit Control 8 to come back. So now I kind of remember, okay, that's the bottom back edge of my part. Now what I did in class, so now you can see that I can still use the origin, but I'm going to demonstrate how you could use the origin to center this circle. So I could hover over this and it would seem like it would imply a relationship, but it doesn't. So I can still move the whole side to side. So I could hold the control key while I'm clicking the position center of the circle and then the origin. And then I get an option to make it vertical. I'm not going to do that. I want to show you how you can select that circle point center that sets the position. And then this is a little tricky. So I'm showing you that it's going to be a little bit difficult to pick up the midpoint of this line up here. So what I'm going to do is escape out of that operation, and I'm going to now go to this line until that tiny little symbol pops up for midpoint. And if you just hover your mouse, just hover over it, it will tell you what that symbol means. So that's a really easy way. And it also tells you edge part to other point. Edge of part 0.1, sorry. Now, it's easier with, oftentimes, if you want to use the midpoint, to select that midpoint first and then select an easy to select point like this circle point. So I'm going to, I already have that point selected. Now I'm going to hold the control key, left click to select that, which brings up properties and allows you to add the relationship. So I want them to be vertical so that my circle cannot move left or right. And then I showed, okay, what if I want this circle to be centered between this back bottom edge and this edge up here? What I can do is I can click a line and then go on the side to make it for construction so that the line is just like it sounds, for construction. So if I go over here, I could go and I could get the midpoint between this for this whole edge, but I actually wanted to have it between here and here. So what I'm going to do is create the line from from this edge to this edge. Now I'm going to scroll this a little bit out of the way, and you should be able to see the midpoint of that line for construction. So I'm going to have this, and if I just slide it up, sometimes it'll show up in Snap, sometimes it won't. So I'm going to escape and then wait until the midpoint is selected. And you can see it right here, I have existing relationships midpoint 5. Now, if I hold that button down, click on the middle, now I have my 2 points. And I want to make them, in this case, coincident, meaning right on top of each other. Say okay, and that did not work. So I'm going to Control Z, and do that over. So let me drag this out of the way. So even your instructors will make mistakes, okay? So undo if something didn't work out right. Now, see here, I've got a bunch of stuff. I only want my midpoint, so I'm going to delete delete. So I have my midpoint, that's this, midpoint 6. Control, select that point, that's that. I'll make them coincident. Now, coincident means right on top of each other, or if it was a circle next to an edge, coincident next side edge, or sorry, tangent next side edge. I'll go over a lot of these relationships as we go along. And again, you can hover over relationships to get information about them. Okay. Usually the symbols, you'll start getting used to those. Now, what else do I have left? I have to give my dimension or my circle a size. Now I'm fully defined. Okay. Now I could cut that hole through. And if I do, you'll see like I don't want to go, I can drag that through and it's not going to go through the bottom of the part. It'll go through that backside and not the bottom. So that's all. All right. So I should have probably saved. So I didn't demonstrate what I preach, but save your part in a comma place. Let's go and move on to the next slide. It was with that very interesting. I really liked how everyone got into learning how to sketch. And it also was a little bit frustrating, but also kind of fun at the same time. So I'm going to do File, New. And this time I'm going to actually practice what I preach and immediately hit save. Call this part 4. Be a little bit more creative with your names. Sketch. And I'm actually looking off screen at the actual top, front, and right and making a decision of which plane I want to sketch on, because when I bring it into a drawing, as you should be learning when you're doing the tutorials, if you don't draw the sketch on the correct planes, when you bring it into the drawing view, it actually won't, the correct views won't be in the correct spots. So I'll demonstrate what I mean by that. So you can go and look at the assignment of the lecture, that slide that I was looking at. So I want to look at the front plane and sketch on it, because that's the actual thing that I had outlined. So again, I'm always, as you're probably picking up, I'm always starting from the origin and then starting my sketches from there. And then I'm drawing the basic outline of the shape, and I'm using that horizontal thing as well and waiting for my horizontal dash line to be over. So a lot of people, okay, here, another good example that I haven't talked about in class, zooming. So when you zoom in, if I keep my mouse cursor kind of in the middle of the part, it will zoom pretty much straight towards you. If I'm off to the left and I scroll, it's going to scroll the part towards the right. It kind of seems counterintuitive, but it does make sense after you use it for a while. So just bear with it. So if you're off to the right, it's bringing the object to your left. If you're like, you just want to zoom in center your mouse pointer in the middle. Other hotkeys, let's see, Shift will do a finer, if I hold the Shift key, it'll do a finer resolution, zoom in and out. And Control with the middle mouse button and Shift will zoom. Middle mouse button pressed down with the Control key will pan. It's a nice, easy way to kind of navigate. Okay. All right. So we have our shape, and I give. We knew that it was 3 units tall, and SOLIDWORKS is good about adjusting the other shapes. So we didn't have units, but it says millimeters. We could switch to unit inches if we wanted to, but I'm going to leave it as is because it will convert 3 to whatever the value is in inches. And then we knew that there was an X distance from, I always like to select the line and then this point, because we didn't have any other feature, so I had to select that point, and that distance was 3. All right, and then we knew this distance was 1. Now, we talked about in class, we didn't know the distance from here to, say, here. But we talked about in class, if you drew a line from here to here and here to here, the angle in between that line, this line, and that line, if I drew one across there, would be 45 degrees. But I can actually go and use this one because it's also 45 degrees, because those would be parallel to each other if I drew a line across here. So I can actually close two underdefined entities by going across them because they have those relationships. Now I have my geometry. All right. Just kind of speeding up for the sake of not making a super long video, even though you can scrub back and forth. All right, so now I'm going to quickly extrude, and I'm going to use mid plane again. Just kind of makes sense. There's some symmetry there, and it was 2 units. And then I selected this face, and if you hover over, you can sketch directly from right click on that face and then sketch there. Now I'm in sketch mode, you can see. Right? Now, I would deselect the face. It makes it a little easier to see that you're selecting the edge. You don't have to do this. You can click. You don't have to select the loop. You could control and select around if you're having trouble. If you zoom in, right click, select loop, and then this arrow indicates that it's going to be this loop. If I click that arrow, it gets a different thing. That's not what I want. So I right click, select loop. That's going to, you can kind of see faintly that's these outlines. Now, I want to convert entities. So we talked about in class, what it essentially means is it's taking that edge and it's using all the attributes, the dimensions that it had, everything about this one, this one, this one. But I don't want to, I'm not going to need that line or this line or a part of this line to do the cut across, or cut through halfway. If you ever do what I just did, hit escape and then still drag, you can still drag the endpoint and then make it coincident like that. And if you don't know, hover over it, it says coincident. All right, so now I'm going to go into trim entities. I've tried all these other options. Trim to closest is by far the best, easiest to get what you want. Just like it sounds, trim to closest. We talked about in class, but I need to trim this one, and I need to do this one as well. If I left these two edges, it would create a non-manifold geometry and infinitesimally thin plane. And just to prove it, if I told you guys it would cause errors, notice how yellow is not popping up. If I go ahead and say, okay, can't define features. Endpoint is wrongly shared by multiple entities. It's a little bit confusing. Basically, what it means is that this line is shared, this point is shared by two things up here. But really what the problem is that this edge right here would create an infinitesimally thin plane, which SolidWorks can't do. So I'm not gonna extrude this. I'm just X out of that and then go back to my sketch, I'm actually still in my sketch. So if I was in the sketch tab, you'd see exit and okay. All right, now go back to trim and trim that line. Oops. Trim entities and trim. Okay, so as we discussed, Control 8. As we discussed in class, this now is a closed loop. And when I go to features and extrude cut, I can go 1 unit inwards, say okay, cut, done. and then choose isometric, and this is what you all were having fun and struggling with to sketch this 3D shape. That is all. Yeah, thanks for good feedback, class. That's it.